Few words in the motorsports lexicon stir a racer's soul like the Brickyard. We are absolutely honored to be here for the season finale of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hi everybody, I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Calvin Fish, Ryan Marine, covering all the action for us down on the grid and in the pits. A shot there of the absolutely famous pagoda. This is a special place, Cal, no question about that. And we come in here with 2 rounds to go in this Sprint Championship, and it's amazing the similarities within the Pro and the Pro-Am category.
It really is, Greg. It's been a tale of the two Michaels. Michael Cooper has clinched the Pro Championship with the wins that he had at Circuit of the Americas in the last rounds of the championship. 11 wins on the year, and right behind him, 10 wins in the AM category for Michael Dynan. But just showing how competitive this championship is. We come into the final rounds of the championship. Neither one is on the pole. Some big surprises there.
Absolutely. Matt Travis putting his Porsche from NOLA Sport to number 48 that has been campaigned earlier in the season by Jason Hall on the overall pole. He is running as an AM category driver, which he is in the Sprint X category. And I'll tell you, he has really put up a superb time. And there's a little strategy at play there. The other strategy is this unique infield road course here at IMS. It may be flat, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have its challenges.
No, that is for sure. The road course is not quite as long as the Speedway at just under 2.5 miles with 14 turns. It all starts with that big rush across the outer bricks and the long run down into turn 1. Very technical through that first sector in green as you look at it there. Then another big blast of speed along the Hellman Boulevard to a very heavy braking zone and good overtaking opportunity down into turn 7 to finish off sector 2. And sector 3 opens up a little bit further. This racetrack is very smooth and super high grip.
And it has produced some great racing in other categories. First visit here for SRO Motorsports America, and an absolutely beautiful day. 60 degrees, sunny skies, and you can see the drivers are all psyched, and you know there's a special feeling whenever they run over that yard of bricks. And right there is a look at Matt Travis. He's got 4 wins with his teammate Jason Hart overall in the Sprint X category. AM driver, but very, very quick. And obviously there's a manufacturer's championship that's at play here, and bringing Matt in to drive this car and putting it on pole, showing that speed, is going to certainly help maybe close that gap up from Porsche to McLaren, especially as you pointed out where Michael Cooper is qualified 5th overall.
Yeah, I mean, they sit 30 points apart, but there's 100 points on offer because you score manufacturer points in both the Sprint and the Sprint X competition. So for Matt Travis, it also gives him more track time. I mean, that Sprint X championship is so tight, just 2 points separating the leaders there. So every lap is very important, allows them to maybe work on some different setups as well.
Lots of great stories coming in here. One of them, Drew Staveley, who sits 2nd in the Pro category points, won at the opening round of the championship and then has had a slew of second-place finishes. But this is an opportunity for him. Starts outside of the front row, 3 positions in front of Cooper.
Yeah, and he'd love to bookend the championship season. I know he's been frustrated. I mean, it's really all been about precision, execution. I mean, those drivers, Spence Pompelli for most of the year as well, they just put on quite a show. It's the driving at the highest level. The teams have really performed well, but for Drew Staveley not to visit victory lane again since the opening round of the championship, I'm sure on Saturday night at COTA back in March, he wasn't thinking that was going to be the story for the season.
Yeah, no question about that. There you see the number 24, Frank Gannett, not their usual colors. Frank, at the most recent round at Circuit of the Americas, had a big hit with Mark Clennon. Couldn't get the car repaired. PF Racing has provided them the chassis for him to go run with. In the AM category, Michael Dynan qualifies in the inside of the 2nd row, 2nd in the AM category. Paul Terry alongside. Those two have had some spectacular races in this championship.
They really have, and that Aston Martin Vantage GT4 has really been a great fit for a number of the teams. Admittedly, the Porsche sits on the pole here today, so we'll have to see in race trim what the Astons can do. Dynan just has shown such great poise and confidence this year, and that's built every weekend where he keeps scoring these brilliant victories. He's won 15 races this year, 10 in Sprint, 5 in Sprint X. He's very much out for a double championship here this weekend if he and Robbie Fowler can perform over the 2 Sprint X rounds. So there's a lot on the line for him, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe that Porsche is the horse for the course here at Indianapolis.
The guy that I wouldn't count out is the number 99, Jeff Courtney, in the Rec Stuff Racing Mercedes-AMG GT4. Hasn't run the entire season. VIR got every fast lap there. He has great speed, no question about that, and ends up 6th outside of row 3, 4th in class here. That's a car that's got some potential to it, and a bit of sad news, but also some good news. In the number 11, the 2nd of the Black Dog cars, Tony Gaples, who missed a number of races with some eye surgery, not feeling well coming in here, not COVID related, just not feeling well, said, he didn't want to endanger anybody, so Aaron Vogel, who runs with Michael Cooper in the Sprint X category for a different team, filling in for Tom.
Yeah, and again for her, they tested here, but again, more track time. It was a natural fit. When Michael got the word, hey, his teammate and boss was not going to be competing, I'm sure he blasted down the pit lane to Erin and said, hey, we've got an open car for this weekend, and she took it with both arms. So they'll be different because the setups are different. We're seeing Michael go on this tear in sprint competition with the Black Dog entry, yet he struggled a little bit in the other car in Sprint X. So give Erin a chance to see the two different platforms as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be hugely beneficial to her. And Jared Andretti, the number 18 McLaren, there is an Andretti in this field. Didn't get the qualifying that he wanted, third in the pro category, but a bit down the order. And we'll have to see just what he can muster here at the speedway that is so closely associated with his family.
Yeah, well, his nephew Marco put it on the pole here for the 500 weekend, so they certainly had another strong showing here at Indianapolis. Is a place that the family absolutely loves, and I know that Jared will want to try and make some moves here. We know he gets up on the wheel early with his background in 10-minute sprint car competition, so expecting to make some moves, but it's been a weird year for that group. I mean, it really seems that one car, they've got good pace, they're very much towards the front end of the field in the Sprint X grids here this weekend, but this 18 car, they're still trying to work out some of the technical issues. Maybe they got on top of it and they'll be up to speed here in the race today.
So you can see sporting a little different livery with support from Superior Auto for Jared Andretti. Here's a look at the number 79 of Christopher Gumprecht in the CG Racing entry. He too hasn't done the full season. Showed up at VIR, actually showed some pretty good pace there, and great to have him back in the championship. He did get a podium, and is somebody to maybe keep an eye on in that AM battle. Let's check in and hear from the third member of our team. Good afternoon, Ryan.
I haven't seen that before. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, for our pole sitter, that'll be Matt Travis, who you guys have talked about moonlighting here in the Pirelli GT4 America's Sprint Championship this weekend, usually running in Sprint X. And just like you guys said, they're using this as a warm-up for those Sprint X races where he's hoping to clinch a championship with his teammate Jason Hart. Any extra track time they can get on a circuit that no one in this series is all that familiar with, that is a bonus. And talking to them about the laps that they put in for pole, everything went according to their game plan. And that game plan was one flying lap, and that is it. Preserve the tires. Tire preservation, tire degradation. Huge storylines here this weekend up and down the paddock. And I think the guy who takes care of his tires the best is likely to be the one that ends up in victory lane a little bit later here this afternoon.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. And you can see there are spots here where there are curbs on the track, Cal, with nothing, necessarily behind them, and that has been a bit of an issue, especially coming through the quick left-right chicane that is 5-6, right here, exactly where Staveley is. A lot of room behind those curbs, and they've been pretty aggressive on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have some part of that Pirelli P0 touching that blue and white curbing, if you're beyond that, you're going to get called for it. Now, in qualifying and practice, they're very much on top of that. In qualifying, a lot of laps were deleted here this morning. In the race, I mean, there's a bit more discretion used there by the stewards, but if you're a repeat offender and you gain a position by it, you're going to certainly have to give it back.
Right there, the 210 of Dynan. Flying Lizard, Aston Martin, right behind him, the Rear Racing Aston Martin, the Paul Terry trucking machine of Paul Terry. And looking forward to these two guys putting on a show. But I think Ryan brought up a good point. This is a track that there's not a lot of familiarity with, not a lot of data. There have some teams that did a little bit of testing here, but none of it has been really extensive. And so I think every lap that people are turning, including in these first of the doubleheader races, a lot of information are going to be learning.
Yeah, and certainly can tweak on the car a little bit tonight. It's been very cool conditions. Everything, you can see that thing that Drew Staveley continues to do on these formation laps, basically riding the gas pedal against the brake, trying to generate some temperature up through the upright, but he does it to the point, he's done a little mini flat spot on those tires. He doesn't hold it down there, but you can see the puffs of smoke there in these preceding corners. We get ready for green.
And here we go. Pace car is in, the Acura NSX, the official safety vehicle of SRO Motorsports America. And Matt Travis leading the field up past the scoring tower, and there you can see the green flag flies. We are racing. Round 15 of the championship, 50 minutes. One driver, the old historical sprint format preserved here in Pirelli GT4 America, and Staveley from the outside gets the jump, and look at this move here. Attempt up and around the outside by Paul Terry, and Dynan just gets swallowed up.
He does. Look like Michael Cooper's up to fourth early. Terry and Travis going side by side here through turn 3, using the curbs a little bit, trying to tuck it down to the inside. We know Paul Terry's pretty aggressive. He sweeps across. That may open up the door for Michael Cooper as well as we head through the 5-6 chicane.
Cooper is inside and sweeps across in front of Travis. That slows him up. Dynan coming after him, and that's that line over that curb. And they'll be watching that. But Terry up into second, but Cooper, as he does, Cal, 5th to 3rd. And look at this, 2-3 abreast into 7th.
Everyone just settling in here, so temperatures will probably take a little bit longer than we anticipated here with these slightly milder conditions here today. Certainly in qualifying this morning, it was very chilly. Staveley, he needs to get the hammer down, try and get that gap going, but we know that Michael Cooper manages these races so well. Having qualified 5th, he's already up to 3rd spot.
This is the one part up on the banking a little bit here in the chute between 1 and 2, then back down into 12, then 13, and this is a hugely crucial corner to get out of it. You can see Staveley is in a hurry, leaving a couple of big black streaks. He, as you said, wants to build as much of a margin as he can, and the one thing that he also has as a benefit is Paul Terry is not known as an easy pass.
No, and even though he's not battling for a class position there with Michael Cooper behind him, you know that every position is important to Paul Terry. So we see Courtney there in the white Mercedes there side by side with Michael Dynan as they get down to the brake zone. He holds that position. Michael goes for it. He's up and over the curb.
Still side by side, Dynan. Oh, ran a little bit wide there. Courtney actually dropped his rights, but he is going to stay in tight here. But Dynan now, oh!
Touches him.
Yep, that was turned across. You can see damage to the left front of Courtney.
That's a shame.
Yep, oh man, and Dynan off into the gravel.
Yeah, I just don't think that Michael really gave him enough room. They just squeezed across there for turn 4. This could be a caution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jared Andretti making some moves early as well.
Yeah, very good points. Fought his way up into about the 8th spot. So see what's going to happen here. And Courtney just needs to limp this thing around and get into the pits. But unfortunately, early contact here, and he looked like he was pretty racy.
Yeah, he looked very competitive there in the opening lap. So going to cost you just over 50 seconds coming down pit lane, but obviously with this full course yellow, that will not be such a fact. Let's take another look at it. Michael out there really wide, and I just think he may have lost Jeff there in his sight line and just goes for the curbing and basically nowhere to go with that move, unfortunately. Clips the left front of Courtney, immediately cuts down his Pirelli, and he's now stuck in the sand. So this is a moment where you're glad that you got enough of a championship buffer that you don't need to finish these races and get the 70% to score.
And I think when they were exiting what is turn 2 here, I think also Courtney on the outside, he may have felt just a little aggrieved as he was forced well wide in that part of the track, but tried to stay to the inside, do whatever he could here. So he makes his way into pit lane, and now it's down to that RecStuff.com racing crew to service this Mercedes as fast as possible. And the one thing that might help a little bit is the full course caution is out, but these teams aren't necessarily designed in the sprint format to do fast tire changes, so this is probably going to cost them at least a lap.
Well, if they hustle, they should be able to get out. It's a long safety car lap here, probably 2.5 to 3 minutes. So didn't see any other damage. He came back at a speed that shouldn't have damaged any bodywork there. It should just be slapped on the left front and be good to go.
With the problems of those two guys, as you talked about, Jared Andretti is 5th. He wastes very little time at the start of these races. So Drew Staveley leading overall and in the pro category. There is Paul Terry leading in the AM category, running 2nd overall. Then Cooper behind him, 2nd in pro. Then Travis, 4th overall, 2nd in AM. And right behind him, that now black, green, white McLaren of Andretti.
Yeah, delivery for this weekend, and great to see him back. I'm sure they're just trying to figure out what's been going on with this race car as well. Home circuit. Jared with the team based here, Andretti Autosport here in Indianapolis.
Vogel behind him, then Sean Quinlan, number 119, Stephen Cameron Racing, BMW, and they've done a couple of chassis changes here, just trying to sort a few things out with that BMW, the M4 GT4. Gumprecht, Gannett, and Bell.
Seen yet if Courtney has actually got out of pit lane to stop going down a lap. Let's see another look at it. See the backdrop there. Michael just suddenly turns in as if Jeff isn't even existing there. Yeah. So got a feel that he thought maybe he'd cleared him.
I think you're right. He swung so wide, Jeff was down to the inside, that there was no way he was going to be seen in Michael's mirrors. All right, I've got Dynan out. And he's going to have to hustle around. Meanwhile, Ryan, what are you hearing as we see Courtney is out on track?
And the tire, so that is the good news there. Sorry about that, folks. Jeff Courtney's crew able to get him back out on track pretty quickly. No damage to the car, they believe, and they were able to keep him on the lead lap, I think, as well. There is a little concern that perhaps the alignment got knocked out with that contact there, but that's about the extent of the damage that they anticipate. So relatively unscathed given the circumstances, although we won't know for sure until we go back to green. The other note, speaking of Flying Lizard Motorsports, we saw Dynan stuck in the gravel after that contact. They do think he's got a tire down. They're going to have to take a look at that car for some damage as well. Really, one of the few blemishes on an otherwise tremendous season that he's put together across both Sprint and Sprint X.
Well, that is indeed a very good point, and he's just had a remarkable year, and really haven't seen him make any mistakes, and just had a superb season. Lights are out on the safety vehicle, so we are going back to green. Indeed, Courtney did stay on that lead lap. And it looked to me, as we saw Michael, he was doing a lot of that weaving, it looked to me like that right front rear might have had a little bit of at least a slow leak in it. It just didn't look quite right at this stage, so I'm sure that's why he's trying to suss things out, but we're about to go back to green, Cal.
Yeah, and I think for Drew Staveley, probably wasn't looking for that. He'd already established a nice margin. Now coming out of 13, this is very much a corner. The cars are loaded up, tire temperatures aren't there. And Michael Cooper's going to try and get a run and a draft down this front straightaway on Paul Terry as he sits in the third position.
And you saw Staveley go right at turn 14. That is okay. They told him that's essentially where on a restart you could go. And here comes Cooper looking down to the inside of Terry as they get onto the brakes down into one. Wasn't quite close enough. Couldn't quite make it through. Ooh, gets a great run though through the exit of two here, but nothing he could do with it.
Yeah, I think Paul Terry took the braking in so deep he is probably just scrambling to get back on his line and get back into a rhythm there, and Michael had nowhere to go with the extra speed that he carried. But here's another quick chicane here. Look at Dynan in pit lane.
Working on that right rear as expected. Back to this battle, and you can see Michael Cooper there still doing a little bob and weave, trying to just clean those tires up. Into turn 7. Two different lanes that you can run through there, and they've opted to do the tighter one, which makes it a good overtaking area here. Quinlan just proved on Vogel.
Yeah, late move there on the brakes, very deep. BMW's been working pretty well this weekend, been towards the top of the timing sheets a couple of times. Staveley, and Quinlan's off there. That's coming through turn 11.
So he gathers it back up. And looks like he's going to be okay at this stage, but this is the compelling battle right now, not for class position, but overall, Terry and Cooper.
Staveley needs Paul Terry to stay aggressive and stubborn in terms of that attack that Michael Cooper's putting on him. So pro leader was Staveley, then the AM leader is Paul Terry, then Michael Cooper runs second in pro. So this doesn't affect Terry in any way other than bragging rights in terms of this position he's fighting over.
Right here you can see just the line that Michael runs through turn 2. He comes out with a big head of steam. Terry's right where he wants to go, so I'm sure he's just trying to figure out what can I do to change things here, create a little lane for me to be able to come through. And Cooper's got to be a little careful because he's got Matt Travis not far behind him in that 48 NOLA Sport portion.
Yeah, and Andretti there in the same shadow as well, so he's very close now with a good opening stanza here. But for Michael Cooper, even though it's the last round of the championship, he probably hasn't raced that much with Paul Terry this year, so he's probably learning about his technique and how aggressive he'll be in terms of defending this position right now, so he's got to be careful. But Staveley is pulling away, and he doesn't want to allow that gap to get too big, even though there's still a ton of time left on the clock.
Here is your now 4-time champion. Just a remarkable run here. The team now has 41 wins in the GT3, or the GTS and GT4 history of their competition here, by far and away most of any team. Got a litany of great drivers, and Michael Cooper is just the latest, and he is pretty special, there's no question.
Yeah, it's just such great chemistry there with Ray Sorensen, who leads that group. They've got Mark Wider, excellent engineer. He's won a championship before, working in tandem with Michael Cooper over the years. And there you see Matt Travis put the pressure on Michael Cooper a little bit. And McLaren's been awfully strong down the straightaways this season, so surprised to see that he can't kind of hone in on that Aston Martin down this long front straightaway.
Interesting on the brakes that time heading into turn 1, Terry. Thought I saw a little puff of smoke, and the car was dancing just a little bit. So he might be right on the absolute outside edge of the threshold as they come through there. Last lap now, Staveley up by almost 2.4 seconds. And this is playing exactly into his hands. Andretti takes a look at the inside of Travis heading into turn 7, at the end of the Holman Boulevard straight. Not quite close enough. And this group of 5 has opened up a pretty sizable margin back to Gumprecht in that 79 blue CG Racing Mercedes in 6th, then Aaron Vogel in the 11 Black Dog McLaren. Next up, then Jason Bell, who started at the very back for some reason. Didn't get why he would have dropped back to the number 2 GMG Racing. Porsche has moved up and around Gannett. And of course, Quinlan with his issues, and Courtney. And the problem for Courtney was he was never able to catch the back of the field before they went green.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He got out and stayed on the lead lap. He needs another reset here to really be back in the big points here today. Just heard that there's a warning for Paul Terry for track limits through the apex of turn 10. So again, as we get more and more laps, these drivers will start to explore the limits a little bit more and the boundaries of the track limits and what the stewards will call and see.
Well, and he had opened up a bit of a margin over Cooper, and it's absolutely gone under braking down into turn 1.
He's overslowing the car. He's braking very late. He's kind of overslowing now, very low minimum speed through that corner, whereas Michael's rolling a bit more speed through the corner.
Oh, Michael looks to the inside now. And got Terry completely offline.
Well, this is one of those calls for the stewards. Did you maintain that position by just really shortcutting the course there? He may have just kept the less on that curbing, so he may have got away with it. He sort of just brushed the curbs. Oh, Andretti, a late move in the inside of Travis. Nowhere to go with it.
But he saw that stack up and knew there was going to be a big momentum loss by everybody in front, so tried something. Look at Cooper. That was the line that he'd been looking for in the setup. That was where Terry was cutting the course to the inside. Cooper got underneath him, which wouldn't allow Terry to get to that apex curb, and he's through.
Well, I think he realizes it's go time. Staveley's continued to inch away from this pack, now up around 3 seconds, so he can't afford to get that gap to increase any further, even if he's got 2 to 3 tenths a lap. It's going to take him a bundle of laps here to catch Albert Drew Staveley once again as he now hits the super speedway. That Ford Mustang, we think about it being a muscle car, but it really excels in the braking department and also in downforce corners with their GT4 platform that they developed a couple of seasons ago.
Well, the margin at the line now, Staveley to Cooper, 4 seconds, but 35 minutes plus left in this race, and we have seen Cooper take some chunks out of people before here. Now with Terry sitting in the 3rd spot, it's pros 1-2, then Terry over Travis, and then Andretti sitting there in 5th. And it almost looks like if Andretti, he's got some pace. If he can get through, he might be able to away here.
Well, there's no easy pickings. We talked about the fact that Michael Cooper's really dominated this championship. Michael Diamond has done the same in the AM class, but every race is a fight. And for Jared Andretti, you can see skipped a couple of the races. Should I say he skipped the rounds at Coda, but now he's back. But it's not easy. I mean, even with these top AM contenders, you're not just going to drive through them. You got to work. Oh, and Travis gets to the inside of Terry and turns him.
Terry really squares the entry to 10 up, doesn't he? And that just leaves openings like that. And as a racer, it's tough to not jump on that invitation. Travis had the momentum to continue. Terry ended up dead stick, but kept it running, and he now is going to be able to drive off and continue as well, but way, way back. And while things settle a little bit, you know, this is a speedway that is so intertwined with legends in motorsports, and Ryan Moreno's found one.
No question. You can't think of Indianapolis without thinking of the name Andretti, Mario Andretti specifically. You're here watching Jarrett race on a track that you have so much experience on, at least on the oval. It's such a family connection, the motorsports with the Andretti family. How much pride does it give you to see John's son racing here in a McLaren this weekend?
Well, obviously, as you said, it's family. And, wherever they're competing, we're all in. You know, I'm all interested. This is a perfect opportunity for me to be here and watch him. I've been following him, obviously, and you know, he's a protagonist. He's doing really well, and so obviously we'll see what he does in race 1. And he has some issues qualifying, but he's competitive. He's right up there, top 5, and then we'll see what happens for race 2. But like I said, he's right in there.
He, like his father before him, and you as well, have that legacy of racing anything that they can. He's raced here in Indy Lights. He's got the dirt track background as well. Does that give you some excitement and joy seeing him embrace all forms of the sport?
Yes, of course, because I think we take a lot of pride in taking advantage of experiencing some of the other, you know, disciplines. And you know, I've done that. Michael has done that. And then John has done. His dad has done it quite a bit. So. Yeah, can you imagine going from a dirt track, you know, to a sprint car to a road race? You know, there's nothing to be more different yet. I think it opens up your dimension. I think it's done that for me. And so it's taking nothing away from what he's able to do. And in fact, I think, especially in wet races, I think you learn something because you're always searching for grip on the dirt, and you do the same thing in the wet. So again, it all mashes in sooner or later.
Last question for you. It's been a big year at the Speedway for the Andretti family. Marco winning the pole for the Indianapolis 500. To cap it off potentially if Jarrett was able to come up with a few wins here in GT4 competition. What kind of feather in the cap would that be?
Well, fabulous. I mean, let's face it, as I said, we work as one. You know, it's, we pull for each other, as you can imagine, and we love the sport, we live it. That's what we've done, and again, I'm all in with all these guys. I'm right on their shoulder, you know, and wish I could help.
I think you are helping. Thank you so much, Mario. Appreciate it. His credential, by the way, still says driver. I think that sums up Mario pretty well.
That sums it up about as well as it can. There's no question about that. And of course, he is so tied to the Speedway. But Mario Andretti, truly one of the great all-rounders. I mean, he can do it in anything.
He can, and Jarrett certainly following similar footsteps as well. But I just love the passion from Mario, being down there on pit lane, watching young Jarrett compete here this weekend. It would mean a lot to that Andretti Autosport team if they could, in fact, clinch that Sprint X championship, which they're very much in the hunt for this weekend.
I loved his line, if there's an Andretti racing, we're all in. That's just how it is in that family. Watching some great battling here, though, with all of the machinations that have unfolded. Sitting second in the M category right now is that bright blue CG Racing Mercedes of Chris Gumprecht. Right behind him is Aaron Vogel in the second of the Black Dog McLarens, and Sean Quinlan in the Stephen Cameron Racing BMW trying to come down. Oh, he's way, way hot coming in. He knew it. Got down under the curb, and that avoided potential contact that really could have affected Gumprecht's race. So Quinlan gathers it back up once again. But I've been watching Vogel in particular. She's running a very similar line to Michael Cooper into and through 2, and she exits with a huge head of steam coming out of turn 2. She's a quick learner.
She is, and certainly probably sharing the data with Michael this weekend. Let's take another look at the replay here. Sean just gets down deep into the inside. There's not much grip there. You can see he's basically locking up tires there as he cuts across. And I think Gumprecht either has a spotter in the stands or he could see that Quinlan with that bright orange and blue BMW is making a late move to the inside. So he delayed his turn in, and that in fact gave Sean a little bit of an opportunity to miss everyone.
Sean had been able to run up the back of that AM field in a relative hurry. He's quick. We've watched him over the last couple of years really become a very quick AM driver. and now he's got to do it all again, but that gives Gumprecht and Vogel a little bit of breathing room here. And so for Aaron now, she can just kind of go on the attack, and I think this is really a huge opportunity for her, because you know, she's running in a podium position here, and it would be her first of the year, and I think she's really up on the wheel.
She is, and she's got her elbows out. We've seen that in the last couple of rounds. I think she's gradually found her feet in this championship. The car with the Flying Lizard team in Sprint X has gotten a little bit stronger, and she's willing to duke it out with a lot of these drivers. He starts to probe, looking for the inside line there on Gumprecht down into turn 1, but gives it up right now. And certainly with this number 11 McLaren, they've had a great run this year. I mean, Tony's had, I think, 6 podiums throughout the course of this year, so he's been very much in the mix when he's been running. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier in the show, missed a few rounds in the summer due to the eye surgery and not feeling well this weekend, but the car is quick.
He came back from that surgery, and I mean, reeled off a string of 4 podiums. It's quick, and Tony's been quick, and so Erin, she knows this is a car that's quick and well sorted, and she's making the move, looking at it on Gumprecht, deep on the brakes. That was beautiful. He had to give, but now she actually shallowed up her exit, and that gives Gumprecht a chance to fight back, Cal.
It does. Finally, she clears him. She was being very respectful there and parked it a little bit to make the move clean, and that cost her a lot of momentum. Gumprecht nearly got the move done. Here we see Paul Terry back on the attack here, trying to recover and get back through this field. He should have more than enough pace to get around these drivers pretty quickly, I would imagine.
Well, has already slipped through on Jason Bell in that beautiful blue and black GMG Racing Frost NYC Porsche. Here's Vogel in the black McLaren, Gumprecht in the blue Mercedes.
There's just been a warning on Matt Travis for turning Paul Terry, so no penalty, but there's going to be a 5-grid spot penalty for Michael Dinan for that earlier collision. So that will affect his race 2 performance here this weekend. And again, we said good job that he's got that title clinched. Things are not going smoothly so far here in Indy.
Well, and for Dinan, the grid for that next round, round 16, the actual finale, is based on fast laps in this race. So he needs to really uncork a couple here if he wants to start up the pack here. Boy, and Vogel. Ooh, Terry. You can hear the wheel chatter. Here's Gumprecht coming back on Vogel. It gets through. What a move by Chris Gumprecht.
Yeah, that was nice. You see Terry up and over the curbs a little bit. They're going to be looking at that, probably see another warning.
Well, this looks like it doesn't have any issues with it potentially here.
Right, Jason Bell has literally come alive, coming off a brilliant podium run in sprint competition at Circuit of the Americas, as well as an overall win in Sprint X with Andrew Davis. It's a big Saturday for Jason Bell in Austin.
Boy, Terry is on the wheel here, just throwing that Aston Martin around.
Maybe a little aggrieved as well, because he was having a nice solid run, lead in his class. And that move occurred. You can see that Erin's just really wide here and just fighting it. She just gets behind through this whole sector.
This was interesting as Terry came up along the outside, and Gumprecht just kept it pinned way down to the inside, and that gave him the inside as they came out of 5. That was a nice response by Gumprecht.
Yeah, nice racecraft as well by Erin in terms of giving him just enough room. Terry now to the inside as we anticipated. Not wasting any time in cutting through this traffic. He gets wide though, that's going to cost him, I think. Gumprecht gets back around, just overcommitted. Now he turns him. Boy, oh boy, Aaron Vogel there right in the mix. Quinlan just avoids the Mercedes.
Yeah, Quinlan, that was a great piece of evasive driving. Terry certainly is after it.
Yes.
Sort of a take no prisoners here.
And he just gets in there really deep. You get down to the inside, there's not a ton of grip, just understeers wide a little bit, probably into the ABS as well. Just tries to get back to power, and that was not intentional, but either way you turn a driver, the still will take a look at it.
It certainly has produced some interesting racing to call, that's for sure.
A bit of argy-bargy going on out there today, Greg.
I think you're absolutely right. And
spicy.
Terry is indeed back into second. But with everything that's unfolded here, a huge deficit to Travis. You don't even see him in the shot, leading in the AM category behind the 3 pros.
Again, that warning on Travis. I assume the stewards must have looked at it in terms of Terry leaving that door open enough that Travis was legit in trying to fill it, even though he turned him. So pretty much a racing incident, even though they're asking Matt to be a little bit more careful. As we look at the gap up front, it's pretty stable. Certainly at this stage of the game, Cooper's not demonstrating any increase in pace that will allow him to catch Staveley, but as we've seen so many times this year as we hit the halfway point, Greg, he is the master at really just reading these races, reading the tire wear, controlling the tire degradation over the course of these 50-minute sprints.
Yeah, once he got into second for the next couple of laps, he was taking about a half a second out of Staveley's lead. It was up to 4, and he got it down to about 2.8, and then Staveley responding, or Michael dropping off just a little bit. Their last lap, Staveley turned to 32.6, Cal, and Michael to 32.9. That's given Staveley that little bit more room, but as you said, Michael, one, he, as you said, he is absolutely amazing at tire conservation, and two, he has an incredible knack for actually, in a race car driver, being able to be very patient.
Yeah, and poised, and just doesn't succumb to pressure even when he's had the heat on him for the majority of the races this year. Take a look at this lap. Yeah, he's about half a second quicker than Staveley, and he got all of that pretty much in Sector 1 on that previous lap, so that's where the car is really strong. Look at the top speeds, he's about 2 kilometers an hour quicker than Drew Staveley down this front stretch.
And quicker than any of the fastest of the top 4 drivers overall right now is Travis. Just turned a 32.7. Everybody else in the high 32s or low to mid 33s.
All of this is just valuable information for their very tight Sprint X title chase that they got going on. And this will be important too, these long green flag runs. What is the tire deg like? What does the balance go to? What adjustments can we make to make their car a little bit sharper for that championship charge?
Dynan and Courtney at it again. And Dynan actually saw him dip the brake there because he did not want to get into Courtney again. And Courtney did not want to be got into as he left a very wide lane and let Dynan come right back through. This is right at the back of the field right now, but they are racing.
Quick look here at Dynan's fastest lap, 32 flat, compared to Paul Terry's 32.3. So yeah, Michael Dynan certainly had the pace here to potentially win this AM class. Travis running mid-32s is his best, so the pace was there. Just a rare mistake by Michael Dynan. We haven't really seen that happen this year.
And Quinlan has gone through on Aaron Vogel, so now Quinlan sits 3rd in the AM category, Vogel 4th. You know, with Gumprecht, when he got turned and lost all that time, he's suddenly potentially in the sights of Dynan at this stage. He's a ways back. Well, actually, he's a couple laps down. So that wasn't a pass for position. It's just Dynan getting racy here.
That's still a ways back.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the support.
This Stephen Cameron Racing BMW is pretty sharp here this weekend. They've shown good pace in practice, qualify as well as we anticipated for sure this morning, but they said it was a really cold racetrack. Maybe didn't quite hit the setup or tire pressure what they needed for the cooler conditions, but I think certainly in Sprint X competition here this weekend, the car is showing good pace to maybe be a factor for some podium runs.
Well, the BMW this entire season has never been exactly short on straight line speed, and with the layout of this track, with that huge front straight out of oval 1 down toward turn 1 of the road course, and then that big blast down the Holman straight. That is a place, if you've got good top end, it could pay pretty nice dividends here. Interesting to see what the margin is here. It looks like it may have ballooned up again a little bit, Cal. 2.6, yeah, and 3/10 Staveley added to that margin. Good lap.
Yeah, I think that previous lap when Michael took a chunk out of Drew Staveley, it was all down through the first sector, so I'd have to put that down to maybe Drew missing a corner somewhere or maybe getting a little too hot. We didn't see it, but he certainly stabilized things once again, and he's been there many times before, and I'm sure in his head he's not thinking this thing is over yet. He's just got to keep hitting his marks and hoping the car continues to perform at the level that it's doing. This racetrack is recognized as being pretty high grip, Greg, so I'm not sure if tire degradation will be a big factor here today for Drew Staveley.
Well, tell you what, let's check in with Ryan, who has worked his way down to the G3 Ian Lacey Racing pits.
And I asked him that very question, Cal. They felt like in their Mustang, the tire deg, not a huge issue. Whatever the problem was that caused him to lose a little bit of ground to Cooper a few laps ago, they're not concerned about that either. Drew hasn't said anything on the radio. His big concern is managing this gap and making sure he has at least a 1 second lead over Michael Cooper. The reason being, you look at these two cars, the Mustang versus the McLaren, obviously a bigger greenhouse on the Mustang. It punches a big hole in the air, and they've raced together a lot this year. The team has identified that if the McLaren can get within about a second of that Mustang, it gets a massive tow following the bigger car. So they feel like if they can keep the gap at about a second or larger, they're not too concerned, but if it gets under a second, the concern level ratchets up quite a bit. They've seen how fast that McLaren can be in a slipstream all throughout the course of this season.
Like Formula One with DRS, this is DRS, but as Drew reduction system. In terms of he recognized if that McLaren gets within a second, that's where it starts to have some aero effect, particularly on the speedway at these high speeds that he's achieving down this front straightaway. And coming through this sector as well, Greg. Call it Holman Boulevard that we're on right now as Drew exits turn 6.
And last time by, they both ran essentially identical laps, and that margin stayed right at 2.9 seconds.
First sector again, 4/10 down on Michael Cooper. And it's something that Drew was doing through there, just missing it a little bit. Didn't look obvious on camera, but both sectors, when there was a big delta, Drew's running low 32 seconds through that sector, and Michael's running 31.7. So Cooper is very consistent, running the same sector time there, and Drew's a bit inconsistent. That's what's creating the compression of the gap at the front.
Well, and again, visually watching Michael Cooper into and through turn 2, and that carries him all the way over to turn 4. He just carries so much speed through that sequence on the track, and that is, of course, in that first sector. And I would say that might be where he's making up a decent chunk of that margin you're talking about.
Yeah, the key is, though, Drew matched him on the next lap. Do you know what I mean? At 31.7. So there's a secret sauce through there that Cooper's doing consistently, and Staveley keeps missing the recipe a little bit.
Well, that margin in that one lap's gone from 2.9 to 2.3. So, and this is getting interesting. This is Andretti, but that's Travis in that blue, black, and white Nola Sport number 48 Porsche. And he is starting to trim into Andretti here just a little bit, consistently running laps a half second or more quicker, and frequently 2 to 4/10 quicker than anybody else in front of him. He really is starting to come alive here in this latter half of the race.
And Travis continues to lead the AM class, so but looking at the track speeds, the Porsches of Travis and Bell seem to be the quickest car down the straightaways here, so the Porsche is really well suited to Indy. And again, this is all about Matt Travis trying to get a little bit more information for the Nola Sport team. He and Jason Hart really in the mix, battling out with Robbie Foley and Michael Dinan for that title. It's really a 2-horse race here with 2 rounds to go.
Well, and with a number of really tight turns, you think about turn 13 in particular, where you come down, that launches you down that front straight with these Porsches with the engine right over those drive wheels. You get it rotated well, you get the power very aggressively on that car, and it just, you get to a certain amount of speed quicker than anybody else, and then you can maintain that down the straight, and it seems to be working, as you said, just looking at those trap speeds. There's Andretti, there is Travis. Again, different classes just overall. I think for Travis, he really, since this is the only sprint race I think he's run this year, he has no interest in a class position here. He just wants to drive this thing as hard and as fast as he can and get that seat time and data.
Yeah, he's double the seat time that he normally gets. You got that mandatory pit stop between the 25 and 35 minute mark of the Sprint X race, so you never do more than 35. He's going to be, typically he jumps out relatively early on his stint, so.
Vogel and Jason Bell for the battle for 4th in the AM class, just keeping you apprised here. Vogel in that number 11 Black Dog McLaren. Bell in the number 2 GMG Porsche. That margin's down to under a second. And a good one, and there's a few legends.
Yeah. Great to see the support out. Michael there alongside his dad. See Superior Auto on board for this weekend. Caught me off guard a little bit when they all came down into turn 1. Not used to seeing Jared run for this color scheme. Indy World has always given Jared great support. They appreciate all of the partner benefits that they get with being associated with Andretti Autosport. Jared certainly is. His father will be missed tremendously in the paddock this year. He passed away sadly earlier in 2020.
Yep, tough year in that regard for sure. You know, somewhere in that car is checking for Andretti, which is the foundation that John created to help raise awareness for early colon cancer screening and detection. Very special there as we take a look. You talked about it, fastest at the speed trap, all part of our new Race Vision powered by AWS. Absolutely great data program here that literally takes the data, takes it up into the AWS cloud, and there's machinations that are done in the cloud and sends it back down to us to be able to present it to you here. And you can see those speeds. Last lap it was Quinlan, just a little bit quicker there.
Evenly matched there, just a couple of miles an hour. Bell certainly been in that frame as well at times today. Got to be so patient with your throttle modulations through this, not ask too much from the car and overdrive. Just keep it super clean, particularly towards the latter stage of the run here. Sector 3 here, it starts to open up a little bit, not quite as tight. Back on the brakes.
This next corner is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I think you really got to compromise the exit here a little bit to really just create as big a radius as you can to set up to get through the oval here. Otherwise you're going to have a lot of load when you really need it.
It's been interesting in the last few years. I've called a fair number of races here on the road course, from the SCCA National Championship runoffs and a couple of Ferrari Challenge races. And without fail, if you come out of 13 and you're dead center track or even farther left, so you basically give up 13 completely to get the acceleration done, the rotation, and get on it through 14, it has always paid big dividends down into turn 1. Whether it's you're trying to set up a pass or you're just trying to make up time.
Yeah, well, either way, if you're defending or if you're on the offense, that's the place to make it. Look at the gap up front now, under 2 seconds. That last lap, Michael Cooper trimmed 0.3 of a second off that lead. Staveley's got to be thinking, oh no, not again.
I was just going to say that. You can almost hear the Jaws music playing, and for Drew Staveley, who was driving so strong as well, to not get this one would be just gutting, I think. But
he's still got a second to play with. The team's concerned if Michael gets within a second. There you can see Drew really working the wheel there to try and get that car to transition and change direction. That's what he's trying to do, get it over to the left-hand side to set up for turn 14, as you mentioned, Greg, and the benefits that you can have through that corner.
And here's that battle we were talking about. The beautiful chrome blue and black GMG Porsche, the 13 Angry Men Frost NYC entry of Jason Bell has now trimmed that margin. He was just about a second. It's now down to just over half a second on Aaron Vogel in the battle for 4th in the AM category here. For Aaron Vogel, I mean, she dipped her toe in the water with one race last year at her home track. As you take a look there at Ray Sorensen at Sonoma, and decided they put this program together to run this full season with Flying Lizard. And so this is really her first full season of racing at this level. She did some Porsche Club Trophy West racing and the like. It was quite competitive, but this is a whole different ball game for her, and she's proven to be very, very adept and a real sponge in terms of learning.
Well, she's got a great tutor in Michael Cooper, she runs with in Sprint X. Obviously, his experience with the McLaren chassis is immense, so we can teach her about that, teach her how to race, And I think the cool thing to see is that even though her pace was not there immediately, that has improved dramatically, but she's always been confident. She's not been intimidated in any way, and that's what you need at this level.
Yeah, and you make a very good point about, ooh, something sounded like it went wrong down in turn 7.
Sounded like a Mustang. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You can tell that from tire noise, but
this battle again, yeah, and you're right, and just having Michael Cooper, who's a McLaren factory driver, to be able to compare data with and talk about strategies and approaches and the like is huge. And you can see Jason there, a lot more aggressive use of the curbs in turn 10. Legal keeps those left side tires on that curb, but Vogel not getting over as far as Jason is, and that means she's just running a little bit wider line. This is important right here. This is at 13 we're talking about.
She runs what I call a
really
very
nice
classic line around the circuit, whereas that should work in terms of creating the radius, but if you can just eat up those curbs a little bit more and cheat it a little bit, almost bully it around the racetrack without, scrubbing the tires, sometimes that can be even more effective. So it's just, as you said, she's a sponge. It'll be a big learning day for her, even though they did test here 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, and here it is. Travis has run down Jared Andretti. Again, not a class battle. Jared in the pro class, Travis in the AM.
But you talk about it being a bucket list racetrack for a lot of these drivers. How cool would it be that I passed Andretti at Indy?
Exactly. So there is some ulterior motivation going on here for sure. And up front, Staveley that last lap was able to pad that margin just a little bit, 2.5 now.
That's huge at this stage of the game.
You bet it is.
Can he get his second win on the year? And again, when he got bumped up to the pro category this year, he came out of the box so strong at Circuit of the Americas, won the opening round, was disappointed to only be on the podium in the second race, and we thought, boy, he's going to be a factor for this championship. He's always been in the frame. I mean, you take a snapshot of any finish, typically Staveley's right there.
Right.
But just hasn't got the big wins.
I think they'll come. He is he's really talented, and he's also just one of the absolute pleasures in terms of spending time with in the paddock. Just a big grin, jovial, fierce competitor for sure, but doesn't necessarily carry it on his shoulder throughout the paddock, and that's a nice thing. With that last lap now, Cooper took another big chunk, 4/10 back, and it's now down to 2.1.
He's digging. He hasn't given up.
No, not at all.
No, we look at the numbers and think too late. The traffic here, catch Courtney here and possibly Frank and Emma for the finish. Could that play a factor? You need to have a couple of corners where you're just having to give it up, and suddenly Cooper's going to be all over the back of that Mustang.
I thought I saw the last time down this street, Gumprecht was up front of them and relatively close. I don't know if they have caught him yet. Oh, he had an issue. That may have been who we heard, but suddenly he's now well back at this stage. Margin 1.7 seconds with 6 minutes to go.
See how this first sector plays out here. A couple of corners to go. This has really been the sector where, on occasion at least, Michael Cooper has really taken a chunk of that gap out of Drew Staveley. That's pretty good by Drew. And again, Cooper's so consistent through that sector. 31.7 almost every lap. High 31.8 for Staveley. So loses a little bit, but not the big chunk that we've been seeing earlier in the race.
You know, Staveley's exit of 4, he runs a little bit farther to the left. And I thought I heard just a little breathe as he set up to get into turn 5. And you know, anytime you breathe, you're costing yourself a little bit of momentum. I don't know if that's part of the issue, and if Michael's a little bit tidier through there.
Look at Travis try to float speed. He's right there.
Sure is.
Great little battle, but as we've seen so often this year, Jarrett, just super stubborn competitor. Fights tooth and nail for every position. He's Car's working well there, though, Greg.
It is. Now, we've talked about it before. He tends to turn in a bit earlier than most other drivers, and that, by its nature, ends up being a pretty good defensive posture anyway.
He doesn't set up through that final couple of corners like a lot of the others are, and I wonder if that's cost him a little bit in this initial acceleration down the front straightaway. You saw Travis behind him kind of come out of 13, get back over to the left-hand side to widen the radius through the final corner and be able to be committed to the power.
Up front, 1.4 seconds, Staveley to Cooper. With 4.5 to go.
Wow.
Yeah, this is getting truly fascinating here, as is Travis's attack on Andretti here.
Yeah, and the leaders get ever closer to that traffic in front of them, which they can certainly catch here with 2 to 3 laps left.
Yeah, the Gannett-Courtney battle. Courtney closing on Frank Gannett here. Travis is glued through turn 7.
He's just feeling them out right now, just trying to see, is there a weak spot? Right there, you can think, oh, I'll dive down to the inside. That's going to be instant tears.
Yes.
He really gets off that corner really well. Look at the gap he established. And just watch this line through 13 in a couple of corners here. Right here. He rolls speed through there, or has been, and uses more of the road than Travis behind him. You see there, Travis more in the middle of the road, which was what you were alluding to, Greg.
And it just allows you to get to the apex in 14 and pick that throttle up. You get the car straightened out a lot sooner. And you see that Travis gained all that margin right back again.
Unfortunately for Drew Staveley, he's basically got 2.5 laps to go looking at the clock. Travis really deep on the brakes. Oh, he's going to roll the outside. That was tight, almost brushes Andretti.
Beautiful move by Travis.
That really was. So he looked at the numbers there, Greg, the accountant, and figured it out.
It's true. The team calls him the world's fastest accountant. And that was a beautiful bit of racecraft.
Jerry will probably think, well, I'll just park on the apex of 1. There's nowhere for him to go with it. And he just rolled speed around the outside and maybe caught Jarrett by surprise there a little bit. And here the leader's about to get to this traffic. First up is Frank Gannett. Where does Drew catch him? He cannot afford to lose half a second in terms of getting around this traffic. Frank gives him plenty of room.
Nicely done.
That's his teammate, you'd expect it, right?
Yep, exactly.
Does he do the same thing with Michael Cooper?
He does.
He does. That's classy.
Yep, absolutely.
You know that Ian Lacey would have been on the horn to Frank, just making him aware of the situation, but didn't want to interfere. Probably compromised Michael a little bit more, but that was not intentional by Frank, and that's where Frank caught it. Where Michael caught him.
Yep. Now this will be a little bit different. You're coming up on the back of Courtney. Down into turn 1, Courtney's still actually putting in some fairly decent laps.
Again, looking at the clock there, it's going to be 2 more laps, even though there's only a minute 34 to go.
Interestingly, though, Cooper ran a lap 0.3 slower than Staveley. Drew got a little bit of that margin back. As I think even though Frank opened up, I think Cooper had to tighten his lineup from 12 to 13, didn't he?
He did. It really compromised his entry to 13 and cost him a little bit of lap time. Courtney, now what does he do? Does he let him through early, try and figure out a good place to do it? He's got speed, so it shouldn't absolutely crucify Drew Staveley's lap time here.
Right.
As long as Courtney stays focused and either rolls good speed and keeps going or gives it up. This is a good spot to do it, just like Frank Gannett did on the run down to turn 12.
Yeah, this margin has come down significantly, though, in these sectors. Yeah, 4/10 quicker in that first sector this time. This is problematic because Courtney runs wide. That's going to slow him down. Now he lets him through, or Staveley forces his way through.
He had to go. It was go time for Staveley.
Oh, and that's going to slow up Cooper a bit.
Maybe not too bad. He
Not
had to get over,
actually,
and but end result is Cooper's a lot closer on the final lap here than he was the lap before.
Let's see, the margin was 1.6, 0.8. So we're within that second that Ryan talked about here in the Holman Straits along.
Look how close Cooper is there. Takes it in super deep on the brakes for Staveley. much tougher task. Couldn't afford to overdrive that corner or miss his braking point, and this is where Cooper's been really fast here through this first sector.
Yep.
What can he do with it? Half a lap to go.
Ooh, Drew, big slide right there, right in the middle of 3 and 4. Held on to it, but this is gonna, here's that line he takes. It's a little compromised, I think, through the exit of 6. Oh boy.
He is right there. Is he close enough? You know, ideally I'd like to be a car length or so closer. Staveley's just got to keep it super clean here. Hit his marks, don't get out in the grey, and spin the wheels up. Look at Cooper floating speed. Oh, he's fighting at Cooper's arms and elbows inside that McLaren right now.
Both of them at 11 tenths. What a last lap. Staveley gets a little bit of a buffer through the exit of 10 through 11. Here's 12. This is everything. 13. Protects to the inside a little bit. Both of them get the exit they want. Oh, Staveley, a little bit of a slide there, but he straightens it up, just keeps the hammer down, and Drew Staveley, he's gonna do it here. He got the run. Incredibly close, the official margin, 0.6 of a second, but Drew Staveley fends off the attack in the ladder going by Michael Cooper. What a race on that last lap. Saw that big slide by Staveley through 3 and 4, Cooper sliding it through 8 and 9. And in the background, Travis comes home 3rd overall. You can tell, friends and family.
I won at Indy and I passed Andretti along the way.
Wow.
What a great battle we saw there by Matt Travis, certainly, but Staveley, he'll be so excited. It's been a lean spell of drought all summer long. He's been in the fight every weekend, but to finally get that second win on the year, it's been a long time since March, Greg, and he thoroughly deserved this. But Michael Cooper, as you can see all season long, just never gives up.
Nope.
It's always a threat, and I think if there'd been another lap or two, may have been a different story.
I think you're right. And just to put it in perspective for Drew Staveley, 1 win, 12 top 3s. So this one is going to be mighty sweet. And just to put it in perspective here for Paul Terry and Quinlan on their way to 2nd and 3rd in the AM category may have passed more cars in the track because they did it a couple of times.
Yeah, you know, to fight back through. But I'd have to think, if you reflect back on this race, that time that Michael Cooper spent behind Paul Terry in the opening laps may have cost him a chance of victory, because he had to really work hard then to close in on that gap that Staveley had established up front.
One of the prestigious recognitions in Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship competition, the CrowdStrike fastest lap, and it goes to Drew Staveley. Set it in the early going, a 1 minute 31.439 when he was making good his escape while Cooper was dealing with some cars in front of him. Wow, what an absolutely fabulous race. Up front, Staveley with that big margin for a while, and Cooper just relentless. Travis's pursuit of Andretti in the late going, and then the battles in the AM category as things cycled left and right. Great run by Aaron Vogel to 4th in the AM category, 7th overall, fending off one of the more experienced guys in this AM class, Jason Bell, so great run there. Jeff Courtney rebounding after the contact to come home in the 9th spot overall, but a good 6th in the AM category. Then Gannett, Gumprecht, and then Dynan a couple of laps down. But well, I'll tell you, they put on some amazingly entertaining racing, these guys and gals do.
Yeah, that was a good one. Nice to see Sean Quinlan up there on the AM podium. That's really a nice run for the Stephen Cameron Racing BMW. And Aaron Vogel knocking on the door. See what she can come back with tomorrow with her 2nd outing in that number 11 Black Dog Speed Shop McLaren.
Yep, a little more data. Take a look at some of the highlights from round 15 of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship. Staveley from pole. You can see with Travis, actually Staveley from the pro pole, but Travis on the overall pole, with Terry coming up, getting right in front. Cooper trying to take advantage of it. Started 5th cal, found himself by the end of this first lap, half a lap, in 3rd.
Yeah, it's a brilliant opening lap, and we've always seen Michael Cooper really good on cold tires.
There's that
Watch
move.
This.
Yep, where Dynan ran a little wide, got Courtney offline.
I think he thought he cleared him, Greg.
Yeah.
I think he thought when he saw Courtney in the grass there a little bit, he was on his way, and he was still there fighting it out.
Damage to Courtney for Dynan. Lucky he didn't go over. Otherwise didn't have much damage on the car. Had to pit though. And then the first of 2 offs by Sean Quinlan, who was just pushing all race long. Then this little bit here, that was the number 48 of Travis getting into the 59 of Terry down in that tricky turn 10, and then Quinlan once again way too deep on the brakes.
Yeah, lucky here that there wasn't contact. Gumprecht did a really nice move there, giving him plenty of space to then do the undercut, continue on his way.
Then this sharp little battle continued to unfold here. Aaron Vogel attacking on Chris Gumprecht. Gumprecht fighting back. Vogel able to close the deal, but then a little bit later in the lap, Gumprecht was able to come back on her as well, and then Terry on his drive back through the pack down to the inside on Gumprecht runs way wide, and right there a little bit of a tap here, and it ends up with Gumprecht going around. And then here's this pass by Travis was superb, Cal.
It really was. I think Jared Andretti thought that he had him cleared. Then he might have gotten the call. He's on your outside, and Jared did the right thing and just gave him a little bit of racing room.
And then the checkers fly for Ford, for G3 and Ian Lacy Racing, and Drew Staveley getting win 2 of the season and fending off yet another massive attack by new champion Michael Cooper. Let's check in with Ryan.
Well, we got our happy winner here, Drew Staveley in victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Drew?
Yeah, honestly, Ryan, there was a time I'm pretty sure that was never going to ever happen. No one ever say that. Before we go any further, we got to say hi to our one of our teammates, Dean, at home. He got really sick after Road America, and he's been at home. I know he's watching. We're pulling for him. What a day, man. I can't believe we were able to do that, kind of flag the flag. I'm so happy for everybody.
You had the win to start the season at Circuit of the Americas. It's been a dry spell since. So many of those battles have been with Michael Cooper. This time you kept him behind you. Were those the lessons that you've learned throughout the year that you've been able to put into practice here?
Yeah, Ryan, we have a lot of really smart people working for us. Our engineer, Zach's awesome. Everyone at Ford Performance, Multimatic, VI Grade, putting all our heads together to make this happen, and it was not easy. I promise you that. We have been working nonstop since that first race. I almost thought it would be easier, right? Go out, win the first one. Okay, that was cool. And since then, we've been fighting tooth and nail, and I can't thank everyone enough for the opportunity. This is so big to me. Thanks to my family. Thanks to the whole team. Thanks to Frank. This is huge.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
He just outdueled a 4-time champion. I mean, that's going to sit pretty well.
Emotional day, I would think.
I think
and
so.
It's great to see, actually. I mean, Michael's had such a stunning year. I think for Drew to experience the champagne a little bit will be nice. I think it'll be well received within the paddock, and even by Michael Cooper, I would think, and the whole team over there at Black Dog. They have a lot of respect for Drew Staveley and his ability. Yep,
you bet. That's just a nice group. And, of course, we saw that great run to the AM win by Matt Travis in the 48 NOLA Sport car, Ryan.
Yeah, that's right. Overall pole, but also a class win and a great battle with an Andretti at Indianapolis. What a day for you, Matt Travis.
Thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. We came into the weekend to do the sprint race, try to get some extra seat time, and aim for the Sprint X Championship later. But boy, that was a lot of fun. These are long races. I'm tired.
Any lessons you learned in that one that'll help you in your pursuit of the Sprint X title?
Yeah, I tell you what, getting bottled up in 4 is a bad deal. Try to avoid that in the future. From there, it was just kind of a recovery, try to get back. Bummer about the deal with Terry, but we talked. It's gracious, it's nice, appreciate that. But yeah, great day and a lot of fun. Looking forward to try to do it all again here in a couple hours.
We look forward to it. Thanks.
Thanks.
And that couple hours is obviously a reference to that Sprint X race, and you called it, Cal. Normally he's getting out of the car at 25 to 30 minutes, and he had to fight for 50. You can see it took a toll.
Well, particularly when you're up on the wheel like he was all afternoon. So it was a brilliant performance. He enjoyed it, and I think there's been a lot of good notes that team has taken from this outing here this morning.
No question. There's a look again at the legendary Pagoda at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. First of 2 races for Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship in the books. And what a great run it was. Thanks so much for joining us. For Cal Fish and Ryan Marine, I'm Greg Kramer. It's been a pleasure to have you with us here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.